Hi there, Kristen here. Today I'd like to talk with you a little bit about some of the big changes I've seen in myself as I've engaged in this healing work and moved along this journey to self-love. I began this journey about 5 years ago, and like a lot of healing journeys begin, I had a situation that brought me to my knees. And from that dark moment, that dark place, I realized the lack of love that I had for myself. And I realized that if I didn't do something to increase my love, that I would continue to find myself in this same situation over and over again. And so I made a commitment to myself on that day 5 years ago to love myself more every day. And what that meant was that I had to really take stock of my life and really look at what was in my life, what I was doing, who I was surrounding myself with, and really ask myself, is this working for me? Does this feel good? And that meant that I went through a lot of changes. I left the nonprofit jobs I had, and I moved in with my mom and dad. And I just continued to, really investigate. How do I want to feel in life? How is it that I really want to feel? What are my core desired feelings, as Danielle Laporte calls them? My core desire feelings, what are they? And how can I generate them? And on this path to self-discovery, I realized how much I had been trying to control myself. I spent most of my energy, I came to realize, trying to control myself, trying to control my emotions, trying to control the image of myself that the world saw, trying to control my environment, my space, trying to control sometimes the people around me, trying to control experiences, circumstances. I had this really tight grip on life. And in this process of healing myself, of learning to love myself, I've really had to learn how to let go of control. When I first started this, some of the biggest messages that were coming to me were all about that. Flowing with the river, letting go. The analogy that came to me over and over again was that I needed to let go of the riverbank and flow with the river of life. And I will tell you that it took me, and still in certain circumstances, takes a lot of work to let go of that riverbank and trust that I'll be carried. Yeah. That, I think, has been one of the biggest points of change for me, that I've seen the most reward. And I'll give an example, a tangible example. So I moved to New Orleans about 3-4 years ago. And it was probably about 2 years into this kind of healing work, where most of my work was really about getting in tune with myself. I was working at a grocery store by day, and by night I was working at a grocery store by night, and by day I was, reading, a lot of self-help books, primarily Danielle Laporte's book, The Desire Map, that is all about identifying our core desire feelings and then finding ways to generate those feelings in our life. Spent so much time delving into that and diving into my Pilates and my yoga practice and taking care of my body. And when I visited my friends who had been living in New Orleans for some time, I visited them about 4 years ago, actually. And when I came back, I knew that I needed to move to that city. I trusted myself. Something in me told me I had to go there. And the only reason I could hear that was because I'd been doing this work to tune in to my intuition, to really listen to myself. So I heard that message, and I decided, okay, 4 months from now, from that moment in time, I would move to New Orleans. Past me might have spent that 4 months kind of obsessing over things that are really out of my control. Where am I going to live? Where am I going to work? What's it going to be like? Blah, 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 blah. Instead, this time around, I decided to just trust, to just let go and trust, and worry about it when I had to worry about it. which was beautiful, which meant that the last 4 months I had in Chicago, I got to be really fully present in that space. It meant that I got to spend some really quality time with my family and my friends there. And it meant that when the time came for me, and granted, I'll admit as well that part of what gave me peace was I had friends who were also planning to move to New Orleans who told me that I could stay with them if I needed to. So I had this like peace of mind knowing I had a place to stay with them. But about like a month and a half maybe before I was supposed to move down, maybe 2 months, I find out that they're not moving there, and I'm still planning to move there, and I'm able to find a place really easily. And just, my experience with moving down there was having a lot of people around me being like, well, what are you going to do about this? Well, what about this? Well, what about this? Well, what about this? And me being like, it's okay. It's going to be fine. It's okay. It's going to be fine. It's okay. It's going to be fine. And truthfully, it was way more than okay, and it was way more than fine. Right? But in that time, the invitation for me, at least, was to not allow everyone else's worry to permeate into my own being, and to trust that the universe will take care of me because this was the right next step for me. And that meant that I found, without much effort, a beautiful place to live at a cost I could afford. And even though I wasn't bringing all of my stuff down there with me because I did not want to deal with that, I still had stuff. I had a bed to sleep in. I had a couch to sit on. I had a table to eat at. I had knives to cut my food with. I had bowls and plates to eat. It's like I had everything that I needed, and anything I didn't need, I was able to find, whether that was like at the Goodwill or like randomly for free on the side of the road. And so I say all this to say that was, I think, my first kind of like evidence point for myself that I don't need to worry. And I don't need to try really hard all the time. That's not to say I don't need to act and put in the effort, but I think that sometimes we move, well, the best way I can describe myself is I used to be like a frantic person. I used to be really frantic. Like I'd wake up in the morning and I'd be frantic, like I was always running late, or like I always didn't have enough time, or like I was always fighting against something. I was super frantic all the time for no reason. I don't know. I think I learned that from my parents. I think I learned that from my dad. But it was such unnecessary. It was so unnecessary to be frantic, and it was a waste of energy to be frantic because I was like wasting all this energy, like blowing around and huffing and puffing and blah and rushing and da, that I wasn't actually enjoying any moments of my being. I was just like frantically moving through them to get to the next thing. However, now I find a lot of power in the present moment. I find a lot of power in being embodied, and I find a lot of peace. It's a pretty big deal when we can let go of that frantic energy and flow and trust life. I think that's been one of the biggest changes for me with having a relationship with the Reiki energy and with choosing this path. I feel so much more calm now, so much more at peace, so much more at home in my own being, and so much more assured of the decisions I'm making. Yeah, the decision to move to New Orleans was a huge one for me because, one of my coaches tells us, when we're forming new beliefs, it's important to stack the evidence for why that belief is true. So for example, if my belief is, I trust that I'm always supported, moving to New Orleans and being caught in the way that I was caught was proof to me that when I trust myself and I move forward with with that instinct, right? My instinct told me I need to move to New Orleans. My intuition told me this is the right next step for me, and the universe caught me. I believe that the great forces of this world want us to do the things that we came here to do, especially those of us change makers who came to be a part of the healing solution. The universe wants us to complete our mission. The forces of good, the forces of justice want us to win, and we will win. And part of how we win is because each of us shows up authentically and trusts the process and does what we're asked for the most part. And what I'm being asked right now is to share my story with you and to trust that the people I am uniquely designed to serve will present themselves to me, and I'll be able to help them tune into their intuition and establish a care plan so that they can do the damn thing, because we need you. We need each one of us here to make magic, each one of us here to speak up, stand up against what's wrong in this world, to fight against injustice. We need all of us. But we also need us to show up healed and whole so that we can do the work from a healed and whole place, because healed people heal people. Yeah. I'd love to hear from you about success stories you had at when you listened to your intuition and good stuff happened. I'd love to hear about your success stories about when you trusted in the universe and then you got goodness. I'd love to hear it. I love you. We need you. Keep doing the damn thing. Bye now.